Reports from Lake Erie have been great for walleye. They've been hauling them in left and right, but the problem has been the weather. Some days it's hot, some days it's cold. The question is, what is the best way to catch walleye in Lake Erie? Using night crawlers on crawler harnesses and casting and drifting, or using the Michigan method of trolling salmon lures? Now, we had a dramatic difference between the two techniques. Which one do you think pays off best? Well, stay tuned. I'll tell you in just a moment. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. High water, that's been a mark of the spring of 1986 in the Great Lakes, and these monsoon-like storms have carried into early summer. On Lake Erie at Monroe, the water line is dangerously close to the road in some places, an inconvenience to boaters, but Captain Ray Nichols says after these storms, fishing in Ohio waters is preferable to Michigan waters if you want limit catches.
Ray, what's happened to the fishing in the Michigan side of Lake Erie?
It hasn't started really yet this year. We've had 2 weeks of wind and rain, and the water is extremely dirty. And we have days where the fishing is very scattered, but it's not consistent because we have the sand, mud, clay bottom over here in the Michigan waters, where the Ohio has a rocky bottom and a lot of gravel, and they don't have the mud problem we have here.
Now, you put it to me this way. You said, Bob, if you want to go catch a few fish, we'll get some fish in Michigan, no question about it. But if you want to go fill the boat and fill the limits, we'd best go to Ohio.
That's the way it is. We can catch fish out here, but it's slow hit and miss, picky fishing.
Now, about a week from now, how do you expect the fishing to be?
Fabulous, depending on the weather. If we don't get another monsoon and the wind, we'll be okay here. The fishing will be just outstanding. The days we have had, the fishing has been very good as far as size, but you may have a good day today and maybe 7 days before you have another one.
What a day for Bob Garner to take his brother Bill fishing walleye for the first time. They bought Ohio licenses, headed for Ohio waters, and decided to use the traditional Ohio technique of casting with night crawlers rather than Ray's trolling methods.
Yeah, we're over around Westchester Island, and a lot of the boats were drift fishing using live bait.
Yes, that's the main Ohio means of catching the walleyes. They drift and cast lead-headed baits with night crawlers and crawler harnesses, and drift and cast.
Night crawlers threaded onto crawler harnesses are a typical traditional walleye bait. You can troll a crawler harness or you can drift and cast, which seems to be more popular, but this type of fishing takes a little experience to know when and how to set the hook. And for Bill, who was walleye fishing for the first time, it was a little frustrating.
We fished an awful long time this morning and didn't catch a lot of fish. Ray and Randy did.
Yeah, right. Catch much anything.
What'd you think we're doing wrong, Bill?
I don't know. I just thought they weren't biting.
But yeah, we'd pull a bait in and it'd be empty, or we'd see where a fish had been nibbling, we couldn't hook them.
Yeah, right. I don't know what to say.
If it was any consolation, Bill wasn't the only one who had difficulty mastering the touch. Brother Bob didn't catch one either using this method. 3.5 hours, the score was Bill and Bob 0, while Ray Nichols and his mate Randy landed 7. That's for the night crawler technique. The question is, how would Ray's lure trolling method work in Ohio?
We caught a few fish. A couple guys had a little trouble with it, but a couple of us that had fished a little more maybe was able to catch a few.
Okay, you and your mate caught a few walleye, 7 to be exact, while we were out there for maybe 3 hours trying that particular method of using the night crawlers. And no question, it really works.
It does work. It's a fun way to fish.
But then I said to you, Ray, let's get out the meat poles and catch some fish. And you got out the downriggers, and all heck broke loose.
Yeah, I think it took us, about 35, 40 minutes to limit out for 4 people.
We went to crankbaits. We had 7 fish in the boat, and my brother Bill he'd never caught a walleye before, and so we put him on to try and get him a limit, and it took, I think, about 15 minutes for him to get his 6 fish.
Yeah, I believe that was it, about 15 minutes.
We get 3 or 4 hours into it, and we haven't. You're ready to bag it, right?
Yeah, I didn't think there was any fish there.
And then what happened?
We started using downriggers, and I caught about 6 fish in about 15 minutes.
What do you think of that kind of fishing?
That's great. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Is that usual?
That's quite normal for 6. Of course, in Michigan, we have the 10 fish limit, so sometimes it takes 30 or 35 minutes.
Why is that trolling method more productive than the drifting?
We put more baits in the water, cover more territory. With the planer boards and the downriggers, when we come across the water, we're covering a 100-foot path.
And you're using those, the planer boards seem to take more fish actually than the downriggers do.
Yes.
Why is
Yeah,
that?
Well, most of your fish are suspended, and the planer boards are out away from the boat where the noise of the engine and the boat coming through the water don't spook them.
Trolling with salmon lures paid off with surprising success. The final statistics for 3.5 hours, 4 people casting crawlers landed 7. Switching to trolling Hottentots, Rapalas, and willy worm lures produced 17 walleye in 45 minutes.
Do you limit out every time you go out, Ray?
Well, probably 95% of the time.
And you haven't bought an Ohio license in 5 years.
That's right. This is the first one I've had in 5 years.
It's got to make you feel just awful.
Well, that's I wasn't eager to go buy one. You know, we probably could have been fishing 7 or 8 more times out of this last 2 weeks that we've stayed on the dock. But living in Michigan and having better fishing normally than what they have, I didn't want to have to do it. But
Well, that's the way you put it to me. Say, if you want to go catch fish, we got to go buy catch a lot of fish, load the boat. We got to buy an Ohio license. And unfortunately, being a fisherman, even though I'm a Michiganian or Michigander, unfortunately, being a fisherman, I went and bought an Ohio license.
and it was true. We did catch some nice fish.
We had a good time. And I would have been happy to stay in Michigan, but walleyes are just too good eating to pass by.
That's it. With any kind of luck, shortly we'll be tasting some of the efforts we put forth today.
Okay.
Take a look at this largemouth bass. Most entries for Stroh's Awards weigh a little over 6 pounds, but this one came in at 7.5 pounds, 23 inches long, caught by Bill Bailey of Kingsford. He was casting a Mepps combo in Bass Lake, Dickinson County. It's an Upper Peninsula largemouth bass that ranks right up there in the trophy book. And just as most trophy bass come from southern Michigan, so do most trophy bluegill, but here's a northern Michigan bluegill that stretched 10.5 inches. Weighed 1 pound 2 ounces, caught by southern Michigan angler Nellie Johnson from Flint. She was fishing the Grand Traverse area, Sand Lake to be exact, with a night crawler at 6:30 in the evening. You know, white bass of trophy size often come from the Tittabawassee River, but this one was cruising Saginaw Bay at the hot water discharge. Tim Walraven from Essexville caught it casting a bass buster at 1 in the afternoon. Just over 16 inches, this white bass weighed 2 pounds even. And they do catch big walleye like this in Saginaw Bay, but this one didn't come from the Lower Peninsula. It's a UP walleye that Ray Furmansky from Daggett caught in the Menominee River early in the spring. Casting a Mr. Twister at 4 in the afternoon, Ray measured this fish at 30 inches, and it weighed in at 12 pounds, one of the largest for this year, no doubt. You know, someday I'd like to catch a catfish this size, and we have some big ones in Michigan. This near 18-pounder came from a good southern Michigan bass lake, Belleville Lake in Wayne County. It was taken about 2 weeks ago by John Kulak from Canton, fishing a night crawler at 8 in the morning. He's close to being our trophy angler of the week, but I thought I'd give the title to this young fellow who caught and landed a particularly large lake trout. Trolling a Rapala in Lake Superior off Gogebic County, Russ Anderson from Ironwood took this 20-pounder that stretched 38 inches. That's good reason to make Russ Anderson our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Angler of the Week.